I want to ask you something. Think about the last time you facilitated a workshop. Did everyone contribute? Or was it only a few people speaking and the others remained silent? If it's more the second one, it's because you didn't design the right conditions for people to contribute. So in today's episode, I want to share with you the framework I'm using to make sure that my sessions are truly inclusive so that everyone can contribute and we can achieve the client's goal. So without further ado, let's deep dive into the episode. Welcome to another day, another workshop. My name is En-Naizi. I'm a workshop facilitator. I've been doing it for the last 6 years, and I've been helping hundreds of facilitators level up their game. Today, I want to talk about inclusive facilitation. I know one of the benefits of facilitation is making sure that the entire room is being heard, but still, I see a lot of facilitators that don't design for everyone, and I used to be one of them. A couple of years ago, I remember I was in this team retreat for a marketing team, and I start with one of my favorite connection activity called the workshop. So basically, I ask people to think about the workshop that they had so far and what they've learned from it. And what happened this day that someone literally answered to this question, and she talked about toxic environment, harassment at work, and it created like a very sad mood, and she almost cried, and she was there physically, but emotionally she was checked out. So I excluded her from the session. And this is the moment I realized that intention alone is not enough to design for everyone. We need to have the right conditions for people to participate. And when you talk about inclusive facilitation, people think about neurodiversity, people suffering from dyslexia or ADHD, or we think about the classical extroverts and introverts. Of course, it's really important to design for those people and for everyone. But in my case, she didn't have ADHD. She was not an introvert, but still I excluded her from the session. So our job as facilitator is really to design for those conditions. I have this visual that I will put here is that people, like most of the time when a meeting or a team gathers, they only get a few insight from the team. It's only one or two people speaking. When we are a facilitator, we need to make sure that this bowl is full of insight from everyone. But most of the time, it's not the case. It's like half full, more than when it's a classical meeting without us. But what we need to make sure is that this bowl is full of insight. So in today's episode, I'm going to share with you the framework that I'm using so that you can also make sure that this bowl is full of insight. And this framework is called the CCI Framework. So basically, CCI Framework. The first C is conditions. So we need to design the conditions for people to participate. This is everything that happened before people start working. So when you're going to start a workshop, you're going to set the stage. You're going to introduce what is the goal of the workshop, why are we meeting, what are we trying to achieve, what are the rules that we need to respect. So all of those things is about giving instructions, making sure that people really understand those instructions. So it's all about creating those conditions for people to really understand and then participate. The second C is actually contributions. So now that you have the right conditions, you can start gathering input from the audience. And for that, you need to make sure that the design of your activities or the design of your session maximize the participation. Okay? So we're going to see a couple of principles in this video that leads to this contribution. Then what we want to do is to transform those contribution into impact. So it's all about closing a workshop, closing an activity. So we had contributions, so people give us input, give us ideas, solutions, priorities. Now, what do we do with this? And this is all the moment where we're going to create this impact. Okay. So what is really important when you want to design for everyone, first you need to create the conditions for people to participate. Once you have those conditions, you will be able to go and gather those contributions. And then you don't want to leave this workshop before transforming these contributions into real impact. All we are doing is for this to happen. Okay. And if you look at this framework, it actually follows really what happens in a session. Because no matter the type of workshop, if you facilitate a team retreat, an offsite, a strategy session, you will always go through those 3 steps. The first one is you're going to set the scene. So kick off your workshop, explain an activity. So it's all about giving explanation of what's going to happen, and people need to understand. And you can imagine, like, if you have people with ADHD or people with, like, are not native English speakers, they need to make sure that they really understand you. So giving explanation, giving information in a clear way, it's all about creating those conditions, and it happens when you set the scenes before people really contribute. Then the second part is really gathering input. So it can be information about the context, it can be ideas, it can be solutions, it can be priorities, but this is where you're going to start gathering those contributions. And then you're going to close. You're going to close the workshop, you're going to close the activity, making decisions, bringing this clarity before people go back to their real life. All right? So those are the things that happens most of the time in a session. Now, what I want to do is, like, we focus to each of the part of the framework, and let's start with the conditions. Yeah, maybe something I need to tell you for this video is that I'm not going to deep dive into each of the principles for each step of the framework, because there are 25. So it will be a very long video, and I'm not sure it will be super interesting. So what did I do? I created this card deck that is color coded based on the framework. So the first C, which is conditions, are orange cards. And then you have a principle with the explanation of the principles. And then you can look at the cards, understand the principle, and then use those cards to design your session to make sure that it's truly inclusive. So for the second C, which is contribution, you have the yellow cards, and those are the most heavy in terms of number of principles. I think we have 13 principles to make sure that people really contribute. And then we have 5 pink principles from the impact part of the framework, so that we are sure that when people leave, we've made decisions, we've had this clarity, so there is real impact at the end of the session. Okay, now let's focus on the first C of this framework, the conditions. So when it comes to the conditions, since it's all going to be about giving explanation, giving information, what you want to do is to make sure that the task is clear. So what I do, and I'm going to give you this formula, it's called the what, why, how. And then if you can give an example as a bonus, this is a game changer. Okay? So what is the what, why, how? First is that when you're going to explain something, you want to talk about what is the activity about, why we are doing this activity, and how we are going to do it. Okay? So let me give you an example from one of the principle, like an activity that is truly inclusive. It's called the silent brainstorming. So what is this activity about? It's about thinking about solution, but silently, while writing your ideas on sticky notes, so that you are not talking. Why we're doing this? We are doing this because the biggest obstacle to creativity is the fear of being judged. So what I want is that people focus on their ideas and are not afraid to share them because they will be judged. So we make them write those ideas on sticky notes, and we make sure that the sticky notes are the same color. We give Sharpies to everyone so that everything is standardized, so we cannot know where this idea is coming from. And how you're going to do it, I'm going to give you 5 minutes. You're going to write 1 idea per sticky note and try to focus on as many ideas as you can. And then give an example. Like, the challenge that we're trying to solve here is, like, how can we improve the recruitment process? So an idea here could be, let's present the package of an offer way in a creative way. And I just write this on the sticky notes and have 1 idea. I keep it for myself, and I try to come up with as many ideas as you can. Okay? So this is the what, why, how formula. And if you can give an example, that is super nice. The second thing that is really important is that you need to make sure that you absorb the complexity. So it needs to be simple. It needs to be simple to understand. So when you we think that when we use more complex words, that we're going to be smarter, that it's more sophisticated and we know this vocabulary. But what's going to happen is that it's going to be more difficult to understand. All right. So what we want to do, we want to simplify information. We want to use simple words, simple sentences, repeat information a lot of time. And all of those things will make it easier for people to understand. And this will lead to better quality outcome. Why? If the information is complex, there is more chance that I don't fully understand you. So I'm going to make a mistake in how am I going to process this information and give you an output from the activity. On top of that, even if I understand it, the more complex it is, the more brain energy I'm using. So it's going to be energy draining to understand all those complex activities. So your job as a facilitator, and guess what? Like the first part of the word is called facile. So it's all about making things easy. So your job is making sure that you are using simple words, that you're trying to simplify everything, that your activity is not too complex so that people understand it. Okay? So you're going to repeat information. You're going to use maybe visual. You're going to maybe you can use other type of media, like show a video, show something else so that really people can understand it. So feel free to make, I don't know, a graph, like I was talking about this recruitment process. So I don't know, I have 4 steps in my process. The second step is here. And then I have all those things that happen. So I'm making this, and now my recruitment process is going to be way simpler to understand, and it's not going to be words only. So it's really important that you, that you try to find ways to simplify it. Okay. And I want to talk about like a small information. It's on top of, it's called, when we talk about inclusive facilitation, when we talk about ADHD, dyslexia, we think that like design for everyone is going to slow the group, is that it's going to make us like not reach the outcome faster, or we're not going to make it because we don't have the right team to do it. And I'm sorry to say that, but that's like what people believe. And actually, like when you design for one, like if I design for those people in mind and I extend to many, everyone is going to take advantage of that. Like I can take a small example, like with me, I'm a non-English native speaker. And statistically in your room, it should be like at least 10% that is non-English native speaker in your room when you facilitate a workshop. So what am I going to do if someone is not native English speaker like me in a workshop? I'm going to use more simple words. I'm going to repeat information. I'm going to give more examples, etc., etc. So, and all of that is not only going to be useful for the person that is non-English native speaker, it's going to be valuable for everyone, because it's going to be more clear, because it's going to be more simple. So this is why you want to design for everyone, because it's going to serve really everyone. Yeah. So small information. Okay. So you want to design the right conditions, and to do that, you want to make sure that the task is clear, people understand it, and that you're doing your job to absorb the complexity so that it's really simple to understand. All right. Now we can move on to the second C, which is contributions. So contributions, there are a bunch of principles for contributions, because this is going to depend on your workshop. So you will see that there is, like I told you, like there is 13 cards. And by the way, I didn't say it, but I will put the link in bio so that you can, in the description, so that you can download them totally free. You can print them like in a fancy printer at home, or you can just use the digital version. It's a very nice interface. It's called I Love Cards from my friend Alex. So have fun playing with the cards. But what I want to tell you is that, of course, all those principles will make your session more inclusive. But some of them will be more interesting to use depending on the context. So I challenge you to really think and try to understand what is the logic behind them, so that you can really use the one that makes more sense. And I will give you a couple of examples when we wrap up that section of the video. So link in the description, you can download them for free. All right. So the contribution, the first one, and honestly, if you just do that, you're already going to change the way people are going to contribute to your session. So the first one is individual thinking first. So no matter what you do, you want to start by giving the participant a bit of individual thinking time. So you give the explanation like silent brainstorming, you're going to do silent brainstorming. In silent brainstorming, they will have a lot of individual thinking time, but you give them exercise to do. And before they do anything, you tell them to think about what would be their answers to this question. Just think. They don't need to write. They don't need to sketch it. They just need to think. Because what happens most of the time, especially in meetings, someone is going to throw information, an idea, and then like biases are created. Like group is being influenced. Some people are going to shut down. They are not going to think about it because people are already going into this like big debate. So make sure to give thinking time, individual thinking time for everyone before going to another way of sharing information. Okay, so that's my first, like, this is the golden principle. It can be like a short amount of time. Hey guys, think about it for 2 minutes, and then you move to something else. And then you can do like, okay, now that you've thought about it individually, maybe you want to write down your ideas on sticky notes, on a piece of paper. Then maybe you can do small groups, like pairing people, or group of 3 works very well when it comes to dynamic, because everyone is going to contribute in a small sized group. And then you can move to the entire group afterwards. It's actually coming from liberating structures. It's called the 1, 2, 4, 0. So first you start by yourself, individual thinking, then you pair, then obviously it's a group of 4. And then once you've done that, you move to the entire group. So this is very useful. Like, this is just a way to show you, and you will see this in the principles, but like trying to see different ways of creating contribution, and like this step by step process to get there makes it way more inclusive while still making like a real discussion happen, because you need to reach a consensus or achieve the goal, etc., etc. Okay, so it was just like a technique to show you how you can use individual thinking time. But even if you go to the group right away, which I would not advise, at least start with this individual thinking time. The second one, that is the most important principle according to me, is called anonymous input. It's actually here. So anonymous input is like, what you want to do is that sometimes in your workshop it could be interesting that you have an anonymous brainstorm. So silent brainstorming is a way of making this happen. It's like I told you, like, the fear of being judged is the number one obstacle to creativity. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to anonymize outputs of the participants so that I'm sure that everyone is contributing. Let me give you an example. I have an innovation workshop. I bring someone from legal, someone from marketing, someone from IT. All those people, like, like, they're managers. There is a lot of, like, I don't know, politics, egos. So they're going to be very careful into sharing ideas because, like, yeah, it can be bad for them if it's not the right one, or people are judging or not using it the right way. So in this specific case, it could be very interesting to use this principle. And I told you, for example, like, in this context, this principle is interesting, but imagine you're working with the same team for years. Like, you have a small team, it's 5 people, they've been working together for 10 years, and it's super safe space. There is trust. People are not afraid to criticize each other because it's for the sake of the team, for the sake of the company. In that case, you don't want to use that principle. It's not useful, because this principle come with a cost, of course, because it's going to take more time. It's going to be more energy draining to write all the information on sticky notes or finding another way to make it anonymized. So this is what I was telling you before we started, is that some of the principles really depends on the context, and you want to see which one makes more sense based on your situation, what you're trying to achieve as a workshop. Is it an alignment workshop? Is it an ideation workshop? Is it a role and responsibility workshop? This will impact the choice of principles. Okay, so we go back. So I told you, like, the 2 first important principles: individual thinking first and anonymous input. So the third one that I believe is really interesting is multiple ways of participation. So basically, something that works very well is that you'll want to use different ways to participate. What I mean by that is sometimes it's going to be words, sometimes it's going to be writing information on sticky notes. Something can be sketching so that people can draw stuff, and this will play with different, like, this will help people with different preferences. Like someone with ADHD may prefer to sketch his idea, or it's maybe something more creative. So it's going to be very nice for this person to sketch instead of writing. And what you want to do in workshop, having different moments using the different ways. Sometimes it can be like pairing people and they just discuss. Sometimes it can be just like a silent brainstorming and they write things on a piece of paper. Sometimes it can be like a big concept sketch, and then people are going to do sketches of their solution. So think about that, because this can really change the way you design for everyone. And of course, it can also contribute to a better understanding, making things more clear. So when you sketch information, it's not about it's not a drawing contest. Like what is nice with sketches is actually it speaks more than words. It makes the thing more concrete. There is less chances that I interpret the ideas perfectly. So you want to think about that. And this also can be used in the way you give explanation to people. So to come back to the conditions, like I always want to have my instructions written so that it's in front of the eyes of people, so that if they didn't pay attention for a second, they can go back to the whiteboard, to the wall, and go and see the example, see the instructions, and this will help. Okay. Awesome. I think I've said all of those things. So now we can move to the last one. So the last one is impact. So impact, what is really important is that for what I believe impact, and when you close a session or when you close activity, there are three main things that need to happen. We have decisions need to be made. We have reflection, because we don't want to steal away from people this moment of reflection, of like they realize what has been done, what they need to do, how they can use this information from themselves. And then clarity, because we want people to leave with clarity, so that we are reducing the chances that nothing happened in the session if they don't leave with that clarity. Okay? So the first thing that is really important is actually the decision part. So a lot of time what I see is that, you do a brainstorm and you say, okay, now we're going to choose the best idea. What does the best idea mean? It's like, is it like in terms of like the one that will bring you us the most money, the one that is going to reduce the tension in the team? Is it going to be the one that is going to be the easiest one to implement? So when you don't say those things, when you don't clarify, there is room for interpretation, and this create chaos, confusion, and people, especially people suffering from ADHD, people they need this structure. It need to be specific for them. So you want to tell them like, I'm going to ask you to vote based on this criteria, on business value. And again, you don't need to choose this as a facilitator. You can ask the group like, hey guys, according to you, how should we prioritize? And then you can choose some options, like do we prioritize based on effort, on impact, on money, on customer value, whatever. Okay? So this is how first, giving them the criteria to make the decision. Something else, if they want to make the decision, they need to have also the clarity on what are the options. So your job is to make sure that those options are in front of their eyes, written ideally, but you can also repeat them information. So we've been working on this for the last 30 minutes, for the last hour, and we came up to 4 options. Like we have option A is about this, option B is about that. So repeating this information is going to help them connect the dots and starting to be ready to make the decision. Then something else that we want to do is we want to make sure that when they make the decision, why they need to make that decision in the first place, what we are trying to achieve. So it's bringing back this context. And guys, if we're here, is to improve the recruitment process. It's too hard for us to recruit the candidates. It takes too much time. It's too expensive. So we were there and we took a full day to solve this. So when you're going to choose the solution that we need to focus on, I want you to still think about what was the initial goal. And then you can mention back the criteria if it's, again, necessary. Okay? So making decisions is always hard. So your job is also to make it easy and to bring this context, this structure, so that people are empowered to make that decision. Something else is reflection. So, to be honest, I was not that guy asking people to reflect after a session. But I had this amazing call with podcast. Actually, I recorded a podcast with Romy Alexandra, and she told me like, ask first, then tell. And like this was a super like it's coming from learning experience design, and this is one of the best way of making sure that learning sticks. And she explained like all the neuroscience behind it. And I started to do this in my session because when I'm going to like imagine I'm closing the session, I'm wrapping up. If I'm doing it myself, I may steal the learning from someone who could have like do this by himself. So I'm not really helping the group. So I don't want to take this opportunity away from them. So what you want to do is like invite them to reflect. Hey guys, we've been together for one day to improve this recruitment process. Think about what happened. Think about the decisions we made. Think about the problems we solve. Think about all of that. Think about what should be done next. So you just invite them to reflect about the experience. And then once you have done that, then you can do the job of making sure that everyone has it by wrapping up so that people leave with clear information in their mind. So this is something very important. Like participants, they don't have the full picture of the workshop. For them, they can like, I don't know, there was like 5 activities, but they remember number 3 because it was really difficult for them. So this is the image they have, but there was activity 1, 2, 4, 5 as well. And your goal is not to summarize all those activities, but just summarize the ones that were super important for the impact. All right? So you just want to go over the milestones, and you sort and like surely want to insist on what is going to happen next. Because this is all what clarity is about, is that like people need to remember, I'm going to do this. They need to remember what needs to happen. So when I leave the room, I know, oh, I have this. So, hey guys, we align on the 3 next steps. Step A, step number 1 is for Alex. Alex, you're going to focus on this, and it needs to be done within 2 weeks. Mark, you're going to do that. It's going to be done in 3 weeks. Blah, 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 blah. So that people don't have the excuse to not start the action. It's not just about the excuse. It's because you want this clarity in their mind. All right. So this was the CCI framework. So maybe I can just summarize. So in the CCI framework, what is really important is that you have the conditions for people to contribute. So the conditions is all about like when you set the scene, when you kick off your workshop, when you present an activity, is making sure that what you're asking from the participant is clear, it's understood. There is no way we don't understand what you're asking from us, Marie, because you made it so simple. You repeated information a couple of times. You give us those examples. So the conditions are amazing for us to contribute. So this will lead to contributions. Okay. Now what you want to do is to maximize the contributions from the participant. So you want to use principles like I mentioned, like anonymous input, individual thinking first. You want to change the rhythm. Like, for example, it's another one. You want to change the rhythm of your session so that it's not always long activities. It's small so that you can also please other people that are, let's say, more creative or more dynamic. It comes to neuroscience, like can like watch back the episode that I've done with Disa Carano where she explains all of that. But most importantly is that you don't want to leave without creating impact. And creating impact is converting those contributions into decisions, and these decisions need to be clear. And so this was the CCI framework. So I hope it will stick to your mind so that your session can be truly inclusive. Okay? So one last thing, and I need to say it, is that inclusive facilitation is not going to always be perfect. It's actually not possible. Why? Because we don't facilitate into ideal situation. So when we have a workshop for a client, we only have 3 hours to come up with an action plan. We have 1 day to define the whole strategy of this department for the next 3 years. So all of those things makes inclusive facilitation really challenging. Okay. And this is how I came up with this concept of like, we need to make a trade-off, and you need to see this as like the way you're going to make your compromise. In one way, we have the conditions, the requirements from the client. So we have, I don't know, speed, the scope, the expectations. And the other way we have inclusive, I would say perfect inclusive facilitation. And your job would be to try to balance this, right? So here you have and depending on the session, you will need to play. So sometimes you will need to go a bit more there. So it's going to be less inclusive. And sometimes, depending if the clients give you realistic expectations, you will be able to be a bit more there. Okay. But what I believe is that in a group, when you're going to facilitate, because we're not facilitating into those ideal conditions, we still need to strive and trying to get there. And I think at the end of your session, there should be a balance. We should not be far from this perfect inclusion. And the way I see it, I have this visual that we'll put on here is that maybe the first activity is going to be inclusive for most of the group. Some person is going to feel a bit pushed because we only have 10 minutes to come up with ideas. It's not enough. So this person will feel not comfortable and it's going to be difficult for her. Okay, so she's not going to share. The second activity, I'm going to invite, participants to sketch ideas. Oh, sketching, it's been a while. I don't feel comfortable sketching. So two persons are not going to be fully included. Okay, third activity is going to be someone else. And at the end of this, if you look at the contribution of each person, we should not be far from those perfect, inclusive contribution. Okay? I just want to finish with this, is that remember this visual with the bowl of insight? Our job is to make sure that this bowl of insight is full from everyone in the room. So we want to create those conditions that will lead to contribution and then transforming this contribution into impact. All right? So this was another day, another workshop. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget, if you want to grab the cards totally free, link in the bio, in the description. If you use them, feel free to tag me on LinkedIn. It will make me happy. Also, I want to ask you something. If you enjoyed this episode, if you love the podcast, it will mean the world to me if you can just give us a review, talk about it to someone else, subscribe to the channel. This is the only way this podcast can grow, and this can motivate me to keep investing my time in it. Okay? So, hey guys, now you have no excuse to make your session more inclusive. So all together, we can do that. All right? Let's go! I need to clean this.